Hello to you. This is Inside the Americas with me, Belle Lupton. Coming up on the programme, meet the US's next Secretary of State, an oil and gas giant with close ties to Russia's Vladimir Putin. Saviour or dictator? 10 years since Pinochet's death, he's still a divisive figure for the Chilean people. And a Mexican standoff between avocado growers and environmentalists in the Michoacán region. Donald Trump has confirmed his intention to nominate the CEO of oil and gas giant ExxonMobil as Secretary of State. Rex Tillerson is said to have a good relationship with Russian President Vladimir Putin, adding fuel to the fire of claims that Trump will tilt his foreign policy towards Moscow. But, as Clement Bonnerot reports, the nomination still needs Senate approval.
So if you want to talk about
the next head of American diplomacy could be this man. Rex Tillerson is the current CEO of ExxonMobil, one of the world's most valuable oil companies. The 64-year-old Texan has made his name as a deal-maker, building refineries across the world. In a statement, Donald Trump describes him as being among the most accomplished international deal-makers in the world, one who knows how to manage a global organization and successfully navigate the complex architecture of world affairs and diverse foreign leaders.
What Trump seems to emphasize in making this selection is choosing a Secretary of State who can make deals. Trump sees that as something that person could do for the United States. So I think it reflects his deal-making outlook on world politics generally.
Tillerson has no diplomatic experience. However, he is a close ally of Vladimir Putin and was awarded Russia's highest civilian honor by Putin in 2013. His relationship with Russia is the main reason why Democrats and Republicans are wary of his appointment as Secretary of State, including senior Republican Senator John McCain.
Anybody who's a friend of Vladimir Putin must disregard the fact that Vladimir Putin is a murderer, a thug, a KGB agent.
Meanwhile, Russia says Tillerson's nomination will provide a good basis for building, quote, mutually beneficial relations.
Russian representatives, and not just the president, have good business-like relations with Tillerson. He's a very solid figure.
The announcement comes amid claims by US intelligence agencies that Russia interfered in last month's presidential election to help Donald Trump win. Tillerson's nomination still needs to be confirmed by the Senate.
Did Russia interfere in last month's US presidential election to sway the vote in favour of Donald Trump? Well, that's the question the White House and leading senators from both the Republican and Democrat parties are hoping to see answered. They've called for a congressional investigation this week. Thomas Waterhouse reports.
Donald Trump might call them ridiculous, but the White House is taking intelligence reports that Russia interfered in the US presidential election very seriously.
We certainly have long supported the principle of congressional review of this matter. There has been intensive cooperation between the intelligence community and other national security agencies and members of Congress in both parties, both before and after the election.
As Ernest pointed out, it's not just the Obama administration that's keen to get to the bottom of the CIA claims that surfaced a few days ago. Both Republican and Democratic senators say there are serious indications that Russian hackers released Democratic Party documents in a bid to boost Donald Trump's election chances. On Monday, Republican John McCain said an investigation into the cyber attack reports should stretch across the armed services, intelligence and foreign relations committees in Congress, while Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell underlined his view that Russia's not America's friend.
Obviously, any foreign breach of our cybersecurity measures is disturbing, and I strongly condemn any such efforts. It defies belief that somehow Republicans in the Senate are reluctant to either review Russian tactics or ignore them.
As he met with leading Republicans at Trump Tower in New York this Monday, the president-elect once again rejected the hacking claims, with his transition team saying they're an attempt to delegitimize his win. The Kremlin has already dismissed the CIA's findings as, quote, absolutely unfounded, unprofessional and amateur.
It's been 10 years since the death of Augusto Pinochet, who ruled Chile with an iron fist from 1973 to 1990. While for some he's remembered as having saved Chile from communism, for many others he is above all the dictator whose regime killed thousands.
It was 10 years ago that as many as 60,000 people gathered at the military school in Santiago to pay their last respects to Augusto Pinochet. At the same time, thousands of human rights activists held a rally in the city centre demanding justice. The former Chilean dictator, who died at age 91, was targeted by the international justice system, but was never brought to trial.
I think there's still a long process ahead to be able to forget, because even though a fair amount of time has passed, the wounds are still open for a lot of the population.
After carrying out a US-backed military coup that ended in the death of leftist President Salvador Allende, Pinochet led a ferocious repression against suspected communists that killed more than 3,000 people. He was, in the eyes of the world, one of the most violent dictators of Latin America. Still, Chile remains divided on the subject. For the right and the business sector, his government saved the country from communism. But today, few openly support his legacy.
There has to certainly be some people who still agree with what he did, who are nationalist or very authoritarian or fascist. But the majority of the country understands that what he represents is the denial of democracy and the violation of human rights.
Es la negación de la democracia y la violación de los derechos humanos.
His arrest in London in 1998 turned the tide. Pinochet had his international immunity waived and was detained for 500 days, following a warrant from Spain requesting his extradition for murder charges. He was, however, eventually released for health reasons. Meanwhile, in Chile, the complaints of human rights abuses and tax fraud piled up after the discovery of secret accounts abroad.
Pinochet is very difficult to defend internationally, and the world has already judged him. This opinion was made in '73, but I'd say it was affirmed with his arrest in 1998, and in the way he returned to Chile. Remember, he came back for humanitarian reasons, not because he was declared innocent.
Key players in the regime are now behind bars, but information about that era is still coming out. In September, the US gave Chile declassified CIA documents, confirming Pinochet ordered the 1976 assassination of opposition leader Orlando Letelier in Washington, D.C. Chile continues to process this bloody portion of its history, as the legacy of the dictatorship lingers.
Finally, environmentalists have been putting a dampener on one of Mexico's prime exports, avocados. With more than 1.6 million tonnes exported last year, Mexico's economy relies on the fruit. But now environmentalists are sounding the alarm at the rate of deforestation involved in growing avocados. Mariam Saab has the story.
Mexico is the avocado capital of the world, accounting for a third of global exports. 20,000 acres of pine forests are on the chopping block each year to make room for more orchards. Deforestation has disfigured vast swaths of terrain in Michoacan state, farming around 80% of avocados exported worldwide.
This area clearly shows how the landscape has changed. This agricultural zone has authorization to export to the United States.
Behind the US, France is the second largest importer of the fruit. To meet rising demand, the number of plantations in Mexico has tripled in the last 3 decades. This is a driver for Jesus Mendoza, a local producer. The grower sells avocados for up to 2 cents per kilo, raking in revenue of up to $120,000 per year.
It has become the main agricultural activity in the region. Practically everybody hopes to find work in the industry.
The conditions here are the most ideal in the world for cultivating avocado crops. A humid climate, coupled with high altitude, allows the fruit to flourish. The only glitch, the produce is smaller than your average supermarket avocado.
Nosotros utilizamos mucho agroquímicos para poder hacer.
We use chemicals to increase the size. It's also to increase productivity and the number of high-quality, commercially viable avocados. At its base, the cocktail is nitrogen, phosphate, and potassium.
The avocado boom is exploding around the world. The Mendoza farm has set its sights on expanding. Last year, production passed 1.6 million tons in Mexico. Bad news for forests, standing in the path of profit.
Last year, they cut all of this.
Some farmers will do whatever it takes to cash in.
It's the only solution, to cut down the trees to plant avocado orchards.
An ancient pine forest once stood here. It was cleared 3 years ago, a common, although illegal, practice.
Nobody respects the law. It's been going on for more than a few months. It's been years now.
Environmentalists like Raime are facing an uphill battle. The avocado trade has grown into a billion-dollar industry. Now organised crime has been drawn into the fold. Some plots have fallen to illegal avocado rings. Raime is the head of an organisation that works to conserve the environment. He has never seen production this intense.
They've been operational since 1980 without any official authorization. All that you're seeing behind me is illegal.
This region is impoverished and the crime rate is high. Avocados are like green gold, so many overlook the environmental cost of production.
We can't pull the brakes on a trade that supports the economy. We would risk putting our population at a financial loss. We want them to thrive and profit.
Authorities are not prepared to heed environmental concerns at the expense of a trade that has Mexican avocados cornering the market.
Well, that brings us to the end of this week's edition of Inside the Americas. Thanks for watching. We'll see you again next week for all the news from north to south.